Love is often described as the most beautiful and transformative experience, yet for many, it becomes the very place where the deepest wounds are revealed. When we fall in love, we open ourselves to vulnerability, allowing another person to step into the most delicate parts of our being. In doing so, old wounds, those we thought were buried, those scars from childhood or past relationships, suddenly rise to the surface. Love acts like a mirror, not only reflecting back the joy of being seen and accepted, but also showing us the pain of rejection, abandonment, or neglect we once endured. It is not that love creates these wounds, but rather that love illuminates them, pulling them out of the shadows where they quietly shaped us for years. For someone who grew up feeling unseen, love can trigger the fear of invisibility all over again. For those who were abandoned, every silence or distance from a partner might awaken the panic of being left once more. For those who were criticized, even gentle feedback may feel like an attack on their worth. These responses are not irrational. They are the body and mind remembering old pain and projecting it into the present moment. In this way, love becomes both a source of deep joy and the spark that ignites old suffering. It is a paradox. The very closeness we long for can also become the trigger for the hurts we most want to escape. And these wounds resurface. People often mistake them as signs that something is wrong with their partner or that the relationship is doomed. But the truth is that love simply shines a light on what was already there, waiting for acknowledgement. If we understand this, then we see that being triggered in love is not necessarily a sign of weakness, but an opportunity for awareness. These moments call us to stop running from our pain and instead face it with courage. Recognizing that love is a mirror allows us to step back and see the deeper truth. Relationships are not only about companionship and joy, but also about growth and healing. By noticing the old wounds love exposes, we gain the chance to address them consciously instead of letting them unconsciously control us. And in that recognition, love begins to fulfill one of its greatest purposes, not just to comfort us, but to awaken us to the parts of ourselves that most need healing. Love reveals what still hurts so that healing can finally begin. One of the deepest reasons love triggers old pain is because the nervous system never forgets what it learned in childhood. Even if years have passed, the body remembers the patterns of fear, rejection, or abandonment. And when intimacy arrives, those same survival strategies are activated as if the past were happening over again. A partner not answering a message might seem like a small thing on the surface, yet for someone who grew up with neglect, that silence can feel like a devastating confirmation that they are unworthy of attention. This is not a rational conclusion, but a conditioned emotional memory encoded in the body. Love, by its very nature, requires closeness and trust, and that closeness becomes the doorway through which the nervous system pulls old wounds into the present moment. This is why love often feels so intense. It is not just about the present relationship. It is layered with echoes of the past. When someone withdraws emotionally, it may not only hurt because of their distance, but also because it awakens the buried ache of a parent's coldness. When someone raises their voice, it may not only sting because of the argument, but also because it reopens the helplessness of being a child, unable to protect themselves. In this sense, love is like a bridge between the present and the past. And what travels across that bridge are not just emotions, but the unresolved grief and fears that were never given space to heal. The danger comes when people misinterpret these triggers as proof that they are broken or that they are incapable of love. In truth, these responses are the body's attempt to protect itself, a sign that old pain is still alive within. If this is met with shame or suppression, the cycle continues. Triggers are denied, wounds deepen, and relationships fracture. But if love is seen as the mirror that reveals these patterns, then triggers can become a guide towards self-understanding. And instead of running from the discomfort, one can ask, what is this reaction really pointing to? What story from my past is being retold through this moment? The truth is, love often awakens what we have tried hardest to forget, not to punish us, but to give us another chance to face it. And in that sense, love is not just a bond with another person. It is an invitation to heal the relationship we have with our own history. When love enters our lives, it often shines a light on the parts of ourselves we would rather keep hidden, the tender places we tried to bury long ago. This is why so many people find themselves feeling both deeply drawn to intimacy and at the same time afraid of it. The fear does not come from the love itself, but from what love makes visible. The insecurities, the unhealed wounds, the patterns we developed as protection in childhood. For someone who once felt abandoned, being loved now might bring joy, but also terror, because part of them believes it is only a matter of time before this person leaves too. For someone who grew up feeling criticized, love might feel like walking on eggshells, expecting rejection with every step. Love exposes these vulnerabilities, not because the other person is intentionally causing pain, but because closeness pulls old fears into the open. In many ways, love is the great revealer. It breaks down the walls we build around ourselves and demands honesty not only with our partner but with ourselves. When someone says, "I love you," the words may warm the heart, yet they also bring up the question, am I really worthy of this love? That question itself is rooted in old experiences where worthiness was doubted or denied, called affection, or made love conditional. The nervous system learned to expect the same from others. And so even in the presence of genuine care, the body braces for disappointment. This is why people sometimes sabotage relationships without understanding why. They are not rejecting love, but rather trying to escape the pain that love has stirred awake. The truth is that love demands courage, not because it is inherently dangerous, but because it requires us to sit with what surfaces when we let someone close. That trembling, that insecurity, that ache in the chest. It is not weakness, it is the living memory of past wounds being touched again. If we can see love in this way, not as an enemy but as a teacher, then every trigger becomes a chance to grow. It shows us where healing is needed, where forgiveness is missing, where compassion for ourselves has not yet been cultivated. Love does not create our deepest wounds, it uncovers them. And while that can feel overwhelming, it is also the first step toward true healing, because what has been brought into the light can finally be tended to with care. One of the most powerful reasons love triggers such deep pain is because it awakens the body's memory, not just the mind's. We often think of trauma or old hurts as mental events, stories we carry in our heads. But in truth, the body stores these wounds on a much deeper level. The nervous system remembers the fear of abandonment. The heart remembers the ache of rejection. And the muscles remember the tension of always bracing for conflict. When we fall in love, those long buried imprints begin to surface, sometimes in ways we can't fully understand. A simple argument can feel like a catastrophe. A moment of silence can feel like rejection. And even a partner's affection can stir feelings of unworthiness. This is not because love is wrong, but because love creates enough intimacy to touch the raw edges of what was never healed. The body reacts before the mind has time to catch up. Someone may find themselves feeling anxious, defensive, or withdrawn without even knowing why. They may blame their partner or believe something is wrong with the relationship, when in reality the sensations are echoes of the past. The nervous system, conditioned long ago, struggles to tell the difference between then and now. That's why love, which should feel safe, can sometimes feel like danger. It activates the very survival patterns that once kept us safe in unsafe environments. This is why self-awareness and compassion are essential in relationships. Without them, we might confuse old wounds for present-day reality and push away the very person trying to love us. At the same time, these moments of bodily remembrance are also opportunities when the heart races or the chest tightens. It is an invitation to pause, breathe, and notice what is really being felt. Instead of reacting out of fear, one can learn to sit with the sensation and ask, what is this reminding me of? This creates space for healing. Love becomes not just a source of comfort, but also a mirror that shows us what remains unresolved within. Partners too can play a role by approaching these moments with patience and empathy, realizing that what flares up is not a personal attack, but a resurfacing of old pain. Love does not just open the heart to another person, it opens the heart to everything we once endured. That may feel overwhelming, but it is also the beginning of transformation, because what rises to the surface can finally be healed. Another reason love triggers such deep wounds is because it awakens our fear of vulnerability. To truly love is to let someone see us as we are, not as we pretend to be. That openness can feel both beautiful and terrifying. Many of us learned early on that vulnerability was unsafe, that showing emotions led to rejection, criticism, or even abandonment. So as adults, we build walls to protect ourselves. But when we fall in love, those walls begin to crack, and suddenly the heart is exposed. In that exposure, every old fear of being hurt resurfaces. A simple request for closeness can feel suffocating, or a partner's need for space can feel like abandonment. The emotions are real, but they are intensified because they carry the weight of the past. Love has a way of pulling back the layers we've carefully constructed to hide our wounds. When someone gets close, they may touch places we've kept hidden for years. Places we may not have even realized still carried pain. Vulnerability requires trust, yet trust feels risky when trust has been broken before. The inner voice might whisper, what if they leave? What if I'm not enough? What if they see the real me and decide to walk away? These doubts are not always reflections of the present relationship, but shadows cast by earlier betrayals or neglect. This is why many people sabotage relationships when things become too intimate. The fear of being vulnerable can feel greater than the desire to connect. So they withdraw, become defensive, or push their partner away. It is a protective instinct, but one that keeps love at arm's length. Yet, paradoxically, it is only through vulnerability that true love can exist. Without it, connections remain shallow, safe perhaps, but never deeply fulfilling. Learning to embrace vulnerability requires courage and self-compassion. It means allowing yourself to feel the fear without letting it dictate your actions. It means reminding yourself that your current partner is not the same person who hurt you in the past. And it means slowly leaning into openness even when it feels uncomfortable, trusting that love can hold both your strength and your fragility. Love does not demand perfection, it asks for presence. And in choosing vulnerability, even when it feels frightening, we create the possibility for connection that is authentic, healing, and real. At the heart of why love stirs such deep wounds lies the longing for wholeness. Every person carries within them a deep desire to feel seen, valued, and accepted entirely for who they are. Yet when childhood experiences left parts of us unacknowledged, unloved, or even rejected, we grow up with inner gaps. Love in adulthood often shines a light directly on those gaps, not to hurt us, but to show us what still needs healing. When a partner does not meet an unspoken need, the pain feels heavier than it should, because it isn't just about this moment, it's about years of unmet needs resurfacing. That is why small disappointments in love can feel enormous, and why joy in love can feel overwhelmingly profound. This longing for wholeness means we often unconsciously look to our partners to complete us. Without realizing it, we may expect them to heal the wounds left by our parents, soothe the fears instilled by rejection, or provide the unconditional love we never received. But no partner, no matter how devoted, can ever fully heal another person's wounds. They can be supportive, compassionate, and present, but the work of healing ultimately belongs to the one carrying the pain. Still, the ache of incompleteness surfaces most clearly in the mirror of love. The danger is that this unhealed longing can create cycles of frustration and misunderstanding. A person may feel perpetually unsatisfied in love, not because their partner is inadequate, but because they are unknowingly asking the relationship to carry the weight of their past. This can lead to disappointment, blame, and conflict. Yet, when approached with awareness, this same dynamic can become a pathway to growth. Recognizing that love reveals old wounds allows us to take responsibility for our healing instead of placing the burden on the other. True intimacy begins when two people understand that love is not about filling each other's emptiness, but about walking alongside one another as they each face their own. In that shared journey, compassion deepens, forgiveness becomes possible, and the relationship becomes a safe space where both can learn to integrate the parts of themselves that were once fragmented. So, while love may awaken the wounds of longing, it also offers the greatest opportunity for healing. By embracing the discomfort, leaning into awareness, and choosing growth over blame, love transforms from a source of pain into a path toward wholeness.